My name's Pramita. In this video, we're going to be talking about the empirical rule and mean and standard deviation and finding percentages in a data set. So the first thing we're going to do is draw out a normal distribution curve with the empirical rule on it, and then we're going to use that for all the problems. So this is like the curve, and in the middle you have your mean, and then you have values that are one set of standard deviations away, two sets of standard deviations away, and three sets of standard deviations away. And then the empirical rule has like percentages of the data set that are within each of those three boundaries. So between the first standard deviations, so this section, you have 68% of the data points, and then between the second standard deviations, you have 95% of the data points. And then between the three standard deviations away is 99.7% of the data. And so you can use this to do pretty much every problem that asks you like what the percentage of the data points are within a data set. So now we're going to do a practice problem to find percentages, and we're going to be looking at a normal distribution with a mean of 100 and a standard deviation of 15. And so this is like how you represent that next to your like curve to show your values. You put N stands for like normal, and then you put your mean and your standard deviation. So then we can change our symbols to represent that as well. So we have our mean of 100. This is 100 plus 15, so 115. And this would be 100 plus 15 times 2, because it's 15 for one standard deviation and then 15 for the next standard deviation. So you would have 130, and you repeat that process again. So 15, 15, 15 gives you 145. And you do the same thing on the other side, but you subtract. So you do 100 minus 15 gives you 85, and then you subtract 15 again for the next two times as well. So you have 70, and then so now we're going to do three problems using this graph. So the first problem is finding the data points between, or the percentage of data points between 85 and 115, which is just this column. And since we have our empirical rule, we know that that's going to be 68%. So just write that down. Okay, so we're going to do one more problem with this graph, and it's going to be a normal distribution with a mean of 70 and a standard distribution of 3. So once again, we set up our graph. We put our mean in the middle, and then our first standard deviation is going to be 70 plus 3, so 73. Our second standard deviation is going to be 76, and our third one is going to be 79. And we repeat that process on the negative side. So we do 70 minus 3, 67 minus 3, so 64, and 61. Okay, so in our first problem, we're going to find the percentage of men that are shorter than 65 inches. If you'll notice, 65 is not one of the values that we calculated using our standard distribution, which means we actually can't use the empirical rule on this one, and we're gonna have to use our calculator instead. So I'm gonna show you guys how to do that now. So you're gonna go to your calculator and open up a new calculator page. You go to your menu. You can either go to probability or statistics, because the option is in both, but for this I'm going to go to probability, and then you go into distributions, and then you select normal CDF. So that's your second option, and then you can enter your values. So since we're trying to find any number that's less than 65, our lower bound is going to be negative infinity, and our upper bound is going to be 65. And then our mean, which we were given, was 70, and our standard distribution was 3. Then you can just hit OK on the calculator, and it tells us that the percentage of numbers less than 65 is 4.77%. For this one, we're going to have to do the same process, and 74 is also not one of our standard distributed values. So once again, we're going to need to use our calculator. So we're going to go to menu, and then I'll show you what to do on statistics this time. So statistics, and then you still just go to distributions and your normal CDF. But this time our lower bound is not going to be negative infinity, because we're trying to find values that are greater than 74. So our lowest value is going to be 74, and our upper bound is going to be infinity. And one way that you can do that is you just plug in a bunch of 9s into the calculator, or you can type in infinity. And our mean is still 70 and our standard distribution is still 3. So we hit OK, and it tells us that for numbers greater than 74%, we have 9.12%. And then we're going to do one last one on this one. We're going to find the numbers between 68 and 75. And since those are also not values on our graph, we're going to have to use the normal distribution on the calculator again. We're going to go to menu and then probability, then distributions, normal CDF. This time our lower bound is just 68 because we're trying to find between 68 and 75, which means our upper bound would just be 75. And our mean is still 70 and our standard distribution is still 3. So we get 69.97% of the data set is between 68 and 75. Okay, that's all for this video. Thank you for watching.